إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد يقول الله عز وجل في كتابه المجيد إنا أنزلناه قرآنا عربيا لعلكم تعقلون نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص بما أوحينا إليك هذا القرآن وإن كنت من قبله لمن الغافلين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had said in the beginning of Surah Yusef that we have sent down this Quran in Arabic so that you may understand. Bear in mind the audience was the Sahaba and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Arab speaking. And then after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, نَحْنُ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ أَحْسَنَ الْقَصَص, that we, the royal we, narrate unto you the best of stories. بِمَا أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ, from what we have revealed in this Quran. So the Quran, the hikmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the wisdom in which He sent down this Quran is not that He sent down a simple storybook. It is not a book of seerah, a book of recollecting or recollection of history. But rather there are signs in the stories which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed in this Quran. And if we were to treat the Quran as a simple storybook, as a book of fairy tales, then we will be mahroom, we will be deprived of the actual essence and benefit of the Quran, the actual purpose of the Quran. The Quran is not a story like the stories of the Three Little Pigs or Little Red Riding Hood. That is not the Quran. Matter of fact, even these little stories that we used to read as kids in school, Little Red Riding Hood, the Three Little Pigs, and all these little children's stories, each story has a moral, has a lesson attached with the story. Why? Because they try to instill, cultivate, culture some type of moral principle or conviction in the children at a young age. Even these simple little stories that they teach in school, very silly stories. But at the end of the story, they have something called a moral, a lesson. The Quran, likewise, although I'm not bringing the Quran down to the level of these silly stories, but the Quran, each story is there for a purpose. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mention the story of Bani Israel and Musa alayhi salam so many times? Musa alayhi salam is mentioned in the Quran 135 times. Why? Did Allah run out of material to put in the Quran? Did Allah run out of stories so He is repeating the same story just to make the book 600 pages long? What is the hikmah? What is the wisdom? And the wisdom is that a nation which is ignorant of its history will repeat the same mistakes again in the future. And the story of Yusuf alayhi salam is a very, very deep story. Very deep story. And today we want to go over a few of the lessons. Because the surah is very long and the tafsir of it is in major depth, we obviously cannot go over every single aspect of the surah. However, we will do our best to extract the main lessons. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins by saying Yusuf alayhi salam, who was a boy at the time, who was not a nabi at the time. His father was Yaqub alayhi salam, was a prophet. And Yaqub's father was a prophet, Ishaq. And Ishaq's father, Ibrahim alayhi salam, was also a prophet. So we are talking about a very high-ranking family here. From Abu al-Anbiya, Ibrahim alayhi salam, came the lineage, one after another, in succession of prophets. Ibrahim, Ishaq, Yaqub, Yusuf, right after each other. So this family, we have to understand which family we're talking about. We're not talking about my family, we're not talking about your family, we're talking about the family of the prophets. The grandfather, the great-grandfather, the great-great-grandfather prophets. So we're talking about this family. And in this family, they had a problem of jealousy. Even in this high-ranking family, the problem of hasad is there from the get-go. And this is the first thing that Yaqub alayhi salam warns his son. فَيَكِيدُوا لَكَ كَيْدًا. Or لَا تَقْصُصْ رُؤْيَاكَ عَلَى إِخْوَتِكَ. They do not tell about your dream to your brothers. فَيَكِيدُوا لَكَ كَيْدًا. So they will plot and plan against you. Could you imagine in the family of prophets, even hasad is there. Why? They are human beings. And hasad, jealousy, leads to something even worse than that called al-ayn, the evil eye. And this is a real thing. This is not something which is fairy tale. Al-ayn is real. The evil eye is something real. And the hasad as well is something so devastating to the person who, the hasad, the one who is jealous of someone, it is so devastating for him internally that it eats away at him. It demotes his quality of life. He is consumed by anger and rage and hatred against the person he is jealous of. That is why in Surah Al-Falaq, we say, and it ends with, وَمِنْ شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ. You seek refuge in Allah from the one who is jealous. Because this jealousy, not only it harms the person who is jealous, it also harms the one who is the victim of the jealousy, if it becomes an ayn, if it becomes an evil eye. And the person who is jealous, he cannot think about anything except this person, what he has. This person has 2 cars, why I only have 1? This person got the promotion, why I didn't get the promotion? This person got into that line of education or that line of career, how come I couldn't get it or my son? And they become jealous over these little shallow things. And they are consumed and they cannot do anything except be angry. And it becomes an obsession, a sick obsession. You know, obsession. It becomes an obsession of this person to just think about that other person all day, 24/7, 24/7. And at some point, this obsession becomes so evil that they make dua against their own Muslim brother because of this jealousy. They make dua against their own Muslim brother because of their jealousy. And that is to be expected, because if Yusuf's brothers, his own brothers, plotted to kill him, of course we can imagine something way less than that. If his own blood ties plotted to kill him, اقتلوا يوسف, kill Yusuf, or أَوْطْرَحُوهُ أَرْضًا, cast him aside to a far-off land. Why? Because they wanted the attention of their father. They saw that their father, and this is another lesson for the parents, that they must اعدلوا بين أولادكم, right? You have to be just amongst your children. You have to be just amongst your children. We're not saying that Yaqub wasn't just, وَعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. No, we're not saying that. Yusuf was the more righteous of the brothers. That is why he had the natural hope for the one who is more salih compared to the rest of the family members. That is why, excuse me, Yaqub loved Yusuf more. Obviously, because Yusuf was more righteous, while his brothers were plotting to kill him. But even that, the children, your children can pick up. They can sense favoritism. They can sense that. They can feel it. You may try to mask it. Yaqub was just. He did not give preferential treatment to any of his children. But the other brothers, they still knew that their father Yaqub loved Yusuf more. They were able to tell. And that is the reason why they were jealous. But it is justified why Yaqub loved Yusuf more. Yusuf was the more righteous of them. So it makes sense. But that did not justify in the eyes of their brothers, in the eyes of Yusuf's brothers. And look at the bond that the father and son has. The father and son, they have a nice conversation at the beginning. Yusuf narrates the dream to his father, and his father gives him a response. And the other hikmah here, when Yaqub advised his son, Yusuf, not to narrate the story, to narrate the dream to his brothers, is because if you understand family politics, you will keep whatever ni'mah you have a secret. Don't boast about it. Don't brag about it. Don't broadcast it. Because not everyone around you wishes the best for you. Why would you put yourself in the crosshairs of people? Do not brag and be proud. Do not unnecessarily do that, because now you are calling attention to yourself and people around you, even your own family members, right? And people who are married, they have the politics of the in-laws going on all the time. You are making yourself a prime target for hasad from the people. That's one hikmah. Do not broadcast the good things. This dream was a bushra. It was a good, glad tidings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this dream was fulfilled later on, towards the end of the surah. And imagine Yusuf alayhi salam being a young boy, being plotted against by his own brothers to be murdered. What kind of patience he had at that age to be able to survive in the well by himself. They threw him down the well, right? And look how foolish the brothers were when Yaqub alayhi salam said that he's afraid that he's afraid that Yusuf will be eaten by a wolf if he lets Yusuf go play with his brothers. Ya abana ma laka la ta'manna ala Yusuf, why you are not letting Yusuf come with us and let us keep him safe? Arsilhu ma'ana, send him with us. Yalka' wa yal'ab, so he can have fun. And we will protect him. And then Yaqub said, I'm afraid that a wolf will eat him while you guys are playing, racing. You know that happens. The older brothers are playing around, they forget about the little one. Because the little one is just sitting under the tree with his little toys, and the big guys are playing football somewhere. So they forget, human nature. And look how silly they are that when they did indeed throw Yusuf alayhi salam down the well, what was their excuse? The same exact excuse that Yaqub said, I'm afraid a wolf will eat him. So they said a wolf ate him. That shows their foolishness. If you want to come up with a plausible story, do not use the same excuse that your father said. They couldn't think. They simply recycled the same excuse that their father gave them. And that was a sign to Yaqub that his sons were lying. So that's why he said that you guys are planning something. Wallahu musta'an ala ma tasifun. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, much higher than what you can possibly ever do. And the patience of Yaqub. This is one big theme in the surah. How many years did Yaqub not see his son? Imagine that. Yaqub became a very old man and he became blind from his grief for losing Yusuf. But he never despaired. And he never gave up from the hope of Allah. That only the disbelievers, only they despair from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even after all these years, Yaqub never complained to his children. That is one of the signs of the believers, that they take all their huzn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They take all their desperation. They take all their sad feelings, their grief, their sadness, they only complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, Inni ashku bathi wa huzni ila Allah, right? I only complain about my sadness to Allah. He didn't complain and make a scene with his family. And one thing, if you pay attention about the style of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He only tells us what is beneficial for us, what we need to know. Do you hear anything about Yusuf's mother in this story? Do you hear anything about how old he was in the surah? Do you hear anything about the age of his brothers? No, because that is not relevant for us. What is relevant is these lessons that we are going over now. Not what color Yusuf's hair was, or how old he was, or how tall he was when he was in the well. Some people literally ask that because back then the humans were much taller, because the average height goes down. So they said, if Yusuf was tall enough, couldn't he climb out of the well? They asked a silly question. Why does that matter? If he can climb out of the well, really? That's the question you get from this lesson? لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي يُوسُفَ وَإِخْوَتِهِ آيَاتٌ لِلسَّائِلِينَ. That in Yusuf and his brothers are lessons for those who ask. But not ask these foolish questions. That's not what Allah meant. Wasn't he tall enough to climb? Or did Yusuf really believe, did Yaqub really believe that a wolf can actually swallow a human whole? What kind of questions are these? These are the kind of questions that we shallow people ask. But the people who really get the essence, they ask more deep questions, deeper questions. And then وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ, when he became of age, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him wisdom and made him from the muhsineen. And that is when a caravan came and picked him up from Egypt, right? And he was taken as a boy into the house of the Prime Minister of Egypt and the First Lady, you can say, First Lady. They call him Imra'atul Aziz, the wife of the Prime Minister. And Yusuf was the most handsome, we know that, of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? They thought that he was a malak, an angel. In hada illa malakun kareem. So naturally the desire came for Yusuf on part of the First Lady. Right? And who wouldn't reject that? At that young age, young life, the desire is the most, right? And to have a powerful lady on the top, on the social hierarchy. She's a person of authority. Who wouldn't reject that? But the amount of patience and restraint Yusuf a.s. showed, this is magnificent. وَإِنَّا تَصْرِفْ عَنِّي كَيْدَهُنَّ. Yusuf was willing, and he did go to jail to save his iman. If he was forced into the illegal act, if he was forced, he would have been excused from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because this was a force. His life was in danger. But he still said, رَبِّ السِّجْنُ أَحَبُّ إِلَيَّ مِمَّا يَدْعُونَنِي إِلَيْهِ, that I would rather go to prison instead of do this major evil sin. And he did. He did not just speak these fake words, he meant it. And he was in jail for many years. He lost a good portion of his young life in jail. And that is another lesson, that we must be willing to accept the harm which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed for us. Because at times this harm is actually less harmful than losing the religion. There's nothing more harmful than losing your deen. When it comes to losing your deen, everything else becomes secondary. Whether that means death, whether that means prison, whether that means torture. Of course, we don't have that iman. But we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us some portion of that iman. We can only aspire at this stage. We can only dream to be half of what Yusuf was. And the other lesson that we see, gossip. وَقَالَ نِسْوَةٌ فِي الْمَدِينَةِ, that the women started talking in the city. They started spreading rumors and stories and gossip. And this gossip is the thing that led to Yusuf's imprisonment. When the people found out, when the woman found out that the first lady tried to do this to Yusuf, they started talking. And you know, that gossip spreads like wildfire. And because of this gossip, the first lady found out, and her ego was hurt. She felt belittled in front of the women of the city because they found out. So that is why she said, if Yusuf does not do what I tell him to do, he will be in jail. If it wasn't for this gossip, she might not have made that instruction that he would be in jail, because the story was kept secret. When the Prime Minister of Egypt found out, he told them, Yusuf a'lam an hada. He said, stay away, don't say anything, keep it secret. Don't let the people find out. But the people find out. People found out and they started talking, and that's when she became angry and said, if Yusuf doesn't do what I tell him to do, he's going to be in prison. And he made this famous dua, رَبِّ السِّجْنُ أَحَبُّ إِلَيَّ مِمَّا يَدْعُونَنِي إِلَيْهِ وَإِلَّا تَصْرِفْ عَنِّي كَيْدَهُنَّ أَصْبُ إِلَيْهِنَّ وَأَكُنْ مِنَ الْجَاهِلِينَ فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ. This is the other theme that we want to focus on, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always save the believer. فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ. Even in Surah Al-Anbiya, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala narrates the stories of the prophets and how each one came into a big disaster, or was at the brink of disaster, they made dua and فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ فَاسْتَجَابْنَا لَهُ. Every story Allah says at the end, and we answered this prayer, and we answered this prayer, and we answered this prayer, and we saved them. وَنَجَّيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْغَمِّ or وَنَجَّيْنَاهُ وَأَهْلَهُ مِنَ الْكَرْبِ الْعَظِيمِ. We saved him and his family from immense disaster. Every single Nabi and Rasul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah says, فَاسْتَجَابْنَا لَهُ, and we saved him, and we answered his dua. Now, Allah answered his dua by putting him in prison. That's the other thing. Allah did not just make him disappear from Egypt and teleport back into his father's hand. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers you, it may not be exactly what you are looking for. Meaning, who of us would want to go to prison? No, none of us, right? We don't want to go to prison. But Allah answered his dua by putting him in prison. Why? To save him from losing his iman. That is the way Allah operates. When it comes to losing the iman, anything else is possible. Anything else is acceptable. Only that you cannot have. You cannot lose your iman. So anything else, Allah will do to save the iman. If it was you and me, and I make God, Allah save me, and then He puts me in prison, I'm going to say, what kind of saving is this? You put me in prison? That's not what I meant. That's what we would say. You put me in prison. This is not what I meant. By saving me, how is this saving me? But this is saving Yusuf. Putting him in prison. Because he was saved from that sin. And then when Yusuf was in prison, وَدَخَلَ مَعَهُ السِّجْنَ فَتَيَانِ. Two other inmates entered with him. They were his cellmates. And they had dreams as well. Each one had a dream. And Yusuf ﷺ was given the gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for interpreting the ru'ya, interpreting the visions or dreams that people see in their sleep. And they asked Yusuf, tell us the interpretation of these dreams. إِنَّا نَرَاكَ مِنَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. They don't know Yusuf. This is the first time they saw him, but they can see the ihsan from him already. إِنَّا نَرَاكَ مِنَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. They can tell from his character, from his moral, the way he behaves and carries himself in prison, that he is muhsinin. He is righteous, one of the good doers. These are criminals, people in jail, right? And they're already telling Yusuf that Inna Naraka min al-Muhsinin. That we see you that you're a good person. Please tell us what this means. How do they know Yusuf knows how to interpret dreams? They don't know that. But because of his akhlaq, because of the nur of Iman, the light of Iman emanating from him, radiating from him, they can tell that this person is salih. He is a righteous person. And as a Muslim, people should be able to tell that we're Muslim, not because we wear a kufi, but because of the way we act. But some of us, the way we act, subhanAllah, people could think that we are like drug dealers or something. The way we lie and cheat in our business. And the way we have no honesty in what we do. We lie. Lying is easier for us than breathing. Lying and cheating and backbiting is easier for us than breathing. This is some of us. May Allah protect us. But Yusuf wasn't like that. And Yusuf could have made many excuses. You know how people make excuses? They say, I grew up in a bad environment, or my family was this, I did not have that. They make themselves a victim of their circumstances. And I believe we talked about this a while ago. But Yusuf had the most excuse to become a victim of his circumstance. To make himself, make excuses for being evil because of everything he went through. He was jailed wrongfully, he was thrown into the well, and he was attempted to be seduced. And so many things happened to him over those years of life from when he was a child. He would have the number one excuse to turn out to be someone evil. Right? Usually when people, they enter the mental institutions, or they go into foster care, or they go into juvie, right? Juvenile prison. They have a track record of something not being right in their early life. Perhaps the father left, or the mother left, or both of the parents died, and they had to grow up on the street and steal just to survive. And then these people, they continue doing bigger and bigger crimes. First it's petty theft, and then it becomes aggravated robbery or something, and then they end up in juvie, right? Why? Because they're a victim of their circumstance. Their earlier years shaped them to become who they are as a man. And Yusuf a.s. would have that perfect excuse, but he didn't. He didn't make the excuse that because this happened to me, I can do evil things now. That's not Yusuf. Anyway, when they asked Yusuf to interpret the dream, then Yusuf had the upper hand. He was in a position of authority because they came to him for help. When you go to your boss, he has the upper hand. When you go to a sheikh to ask for a mas'ala or a fatwa, he has the upper hand. When you go to your father to take your allowance, he has the upper hand. When they went to Yusuf, he had the upper hand. So what did he do? He used this position of upper hand, this position of authority over them, to do da'wah to them first, to call them to tawheed. He did not tell them the interpretation of the dream right away. He first used this opportunity. He exploited this opportunity, right? Because they needed him. So they would listen to whatever he had to say, right? They would listen to whatever he has to say. So he told them first about Inni taraktu, that I left a group of people that they don't believe in Allah. And there is many lords better than just one Allah. And he called them to Tawheed. Almost a whole page he was giving them da'wah in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then all the way at the end, just a few lines, he gives them the meaning of their dream, their interpretation of their dream. He didn't give them their dream right away and just leave. He took that opportunity first to do da'wah first. And that is what we have to do when we are in a position. If I am at work and I am a manager of my section, I have 5-6 people, you try to indirectly give them da'wah if you can. Because you're their boss. They have to listen. They can't shut you down. Right? You're in an upper hand here. So you're supposed to use whatever opportunity Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you. Whatever position or maqam you have in life, use it to call people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what Yusuf alayhi salam did. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه واتبع هداه وبعد. When Yusuf gave them the interpretation of the dream, he gave them da'wah first. And after he was freed from prison, look at his sabr. Look at his patience again. When the new Prime Minister of Egypt came to free him from prison, because he was able to interpret the Prime Minister's dream. The Prime Minister saw a dream. Without going into details, he saw a dream, the Prime Minister, and he didn't know. And his advisors didn't know. So they came to Yusuf, and Yusuf a.s. made the interpretation of the dream. And the king said, take him out of prison, bring him to me. Because the king wants to employ him in his administration, to make him a wazir. And when the people from the Prime Minister came to Yusuf, he rejected their offer. He said, no, I'm not coming out. First, tell the Prime Minister to find out what happened to those women who made up those stories, and then caused me to be in prison. What happened to them? Find out the truth, because his reputation was tarnished. So he said, I'm not coming out until you investigate and find out the truth first. When you find out the truth, then I will come out. So he stayed in prison even more. A short while longer, but he stayed in prison. He didn't rush to be exonerated, because this wasn't true exoneration. This was like a pardon. A pardon is not the same thing. You can still have done the crime, but the president can pardon you. He has executive privilege. He can do that. Doesn't mean you didn't do the crime. You did it, but you're just not going to face the penalty for it because you're pardoned. But Yusuf didn't do the crime. So why is he going to be pardoned? He doesn't need it. So he wanted the story to be set straight first. He didn't rush. وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ عَجُولًا. Mankind rush. We rush. Yusuf wasn't like that. He was well thought. Because suppose he did accept that position of being wazir. People will still talk behind his back. Said, oh, this guy, he's this, he seduced the first lady and now he's this. There's going to be a problem. So he wants to set the story straight. And when they did that, then he came out and he took the position of the financial minister, or what we call it today, treasury. And when Yusuf's brothers came back, I'm going to fast forward now because we don't have time. The surah is very long. The other hikmah that we can notice from Yusuf ﷺ is when he reconciled with his brothers towards the end. Right? They said, his brother said, Ya abana astaghfir lana dhunubana inna kunna khati'in. When the brothers, they tried to first kill Yusuf ﷺ, they knew what they were doing was wrong. Because they said, وَتَكُونُوا مِنْ بَعْدِهِ قَوْمًا صَالِحِينَ, that after you kill Yusuf, then you become good people. You think this kind of tawbah works for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? No, that's not tawbah. You don't knowingly do the sin and say, after that I'll become good. No, that's not tawbah. I'm going to knowingly drink khamr and then after that I'm going to say astaghfirullah. No, you cannot plan to do the sin and say after that Allah doesn't accept that. This is not tawbah. Because they knew what they were doing was wrong. And they remembered Allah. And that's what it said, وَتَكُونُوا مِنْ بَعْدِ قَوْمٍ صَالِحِينَ. After you do this one bad deed, right, then do tawbah. But no, that doesn't work. But when Yusuf, they reconciled, Yusuf did not blame them. Yusuf blamed Shaitan. نَزَغَ الشَّيْطَانُ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنِ إِخْوَتِي. Shaitan whispered and caused conflict between us and my brothers. When you want to reconcile with your Muslim brother, or your Muslim sister, or your family member, whoever it is, do not blame the person. It makes it harder to reconcile when you say, oh, it was your fault. Even though it could be his fault. Blame the shaitan. Say, brother, the shaitan came between us, he tricked us both. Let us shake hands, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us and protect us from shaitan. This is what Yusuf did. Yusuf deflected the blame from his brothers onto a shaitan. There are many more lessons. Unfortunately, we can't go through all of them, but I would suggest you can do some reading because these are practical lessons that really help. As believers, there are so many lessons that we can benefit from in our interactions with people who are not our family members and especially people who are our immediate and extended family members. Allahumma hdina fi man hadayt, wa afina fi man afayt, wa tawallana fi man tawallayt, wa barik lana fi ma a'tayt, wa qina wasrif 'anna bi rahmatika sharra ma qadayt. Subhana rabbina rabbil 'izzati 'amma yasifun, wa salamun 'ala al-mursalin, walhamdulillahi rabbil 'alamin. Qumu lis-salati.